Hello and welcome to CNMS Advising's video on tips and tricks and how to get a job in a research lab on campus if you have no idea where to start. So, first things first, write a little introduction about yourself. You're going to be emailing a bunch of professors with research labs when you end up going through this process. So, open a fresh Google Doc or Word document and write an introductory paragraph about yourself. Tell that person your major, your special interests, what you want to do with your career, and most importantly, why you're excited to work in a lab on campus. Maybe you're really excited about having a career in biological research. Maybe you want to be a doctor and it's really important for you to get some experience in a lab. Maybe you just love this field. Whatever it is, this is also a great way to kind of like remember why you want to do this and why it's important to you to kind of start this process. And then while you're at it, plan a visit to the Career Center to update your resume if you haven't done this yet. Later in this video, I'm going to show you what the appointment page looks like and the different types of appointments you might want to make. But for cover letters and resumes, they have drop-in hours a lot of the week at the Career Center, and there is a link to the Career Center's appointment page in the description box of this video. But cover letters are sort of what you're going to end up doing when you write to a professor saying you're interested in working in their lab. So getting some advice on writing a cover letter is also a great idea. Then discuss this with your network. So if you've taken some coursework in bio or chem, talking to a current or former professor at their office hours is a good place to start. You can just go in there and say, "Hi, I'd like to work in a research lab. I'd like your advice. I'd like to talk through this with you. Like, what's the procedure like? How should I approach these emails?" Ask if they have a research lab on campus. Discuss your interests with them. Maybe they have colleagues that might be working within those areas and they know that they're taking undergraduate research assistants, and so they can point you in the right direction. But discussing this with your current professors is a great place to start. Do your homework. So visit the websites for the departments you're interested in working with. And I'm going to have screenshots of this so you know exactly where to go in just a couple of slides. But check out what kind of research is actually happening here and make a long list of labs that interest you within the bio department, the chem department. Maybe you're a physics or math student. They also have websites that have research. They all work the same way. There is a template for all of those departments that have the same kind of like, this is where the research tab is and this is how you get there. So I'll show you how to do it for the bio department, and then it will be applicable to all the other departments as well. And here's some things to keep in mind. Number one, you don't need to have experience necessarily. The lab will train you to work in a lab. But they might want you to have completed a certain amount of life science coursework. They might want you to have completed, up through Chem 102 lab or something, just to make sure you kind of know what you're doing in terms of basic lab skills. They may not. They might say you have to finish, organic chemistry to work in our lab. We may have no requirements. There's a variety of things. So, keep those things in mind. And when you write your emails to professors, make sure that you let them know how much coursework you've completed so that they can have a good understanding of your abilities. And then the most important thing here is just experience. It's not really that important what kind of lab you work in. If you're thinking, I want to do a PhD in cell biology, but the only real, opportunity for me here is in developmental biology, that's okay. Like, getting the experience of working in a lab is the most important thing, because at the end of the day, you're not the PI. You're not going to be doing the research questions. You're just going to be carrying out a lot of the parts of the project. So don't get too stressed about that. Okay, so here's how you go about figuring out what kind of labs are available on campus. So you see this research tab at the top here, or in the middle there. That's where it is. Click that. There's a drop down menu, but just click on it. And this is what it's going to look like from the bio department. You got cell, computational, etc. And so if you go, let's just start with cell, or no, sorry, we're going to start with molecular biology. If you click on that, let's say this is maybe your biggest interest. They're going to tell you this is what molecular biology and genetics is, and here are all our faculty with interest and labs that have affiliation with this field. So you start at the top, it goes in alphabetical order. You can scroll down. So let's say you just click on the first one, Dr. Charles Bieberich. Lots of stuff, information about the professor, so you know how to email them. They'll tell you this person's research interest. If you scroll down or you click research group, you can read about what that professor is doing in their lab. and you can see some of their publications. So it's really important to read these 2 pages pretty carefully and maybe even check out one of these publications and just skim it to see if you can get an idea of what they're actually doing in that lab. And that way, you can make it specific. So the next paragraph of every email after your introduction, you can say why you want to work in this lab. Use what you've learned by reading about that lab. And again, if you've read one of their papers, you can reference it. So, but make sure that they know, that professor knows that you're serious about this because you've done a little bit of background reading on the lab. Don't rush through this process. And then do it again. Do this exercise for every lab that interests you. 10 is a good number. A lot of successful students will apply to 10 or more labs. And I've had students say to me, I emailed 10 professors and I only got one response. So you might not get very many responses. The more wide you cast your net, the more responses you're likely to get. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So let professors know when you can start in the lab, if they've got room for you, and how many hours per week you might be available. Just so you know, this is not like a part-time job. This is like 5 hours a week kind of situation for most undergraduate research assistants. So they'll train you. They'll make sure what you're going to get out of it, whether that's credit or something else, or just experience. But this is really helpful. Do really focus on making these emails solid, making sure that they know that you're serious about working in these labs. And then, so in terms of the Career Center, this is the last thing I'm going to show you. Um, like I said, this is what the appointment page looks like. So there's drop-in hours for these shorter kind of things like resume and CV review or a cover letter review. So if you've got a resume or a cover letter you want them to look at and edit for you, you can visit during drop-in hours or schedule a short appointment. Or if you want to work on resume building, cover letter building, networking strategies, any of that stuff, you can schedule a longer appointment with the Career Center. So that's all we've got for you today. Hopefully this was really helpful. I hope you apply to lots of research labs on campus and come visit us next week for our next tip.